Welcome, fellow lovers of the weird and strange. This is Lance, your host of Legends of the Hidden Horde, where we explore the folklore behind the mythical creatures that stalk the dark corners of our globe. A huge thank you to all of you for tuning in. Your ears make these strange journeys possible. If you enjoy the show, please hit that subscribe button, leave me a quick review, and give me a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, or X. Your support truly makes a difference. Now, let's dive into the next story. In the ancient heart of Connacht, where the rolling plains meet the brooding hills and mist rise like forgotten memories, there stands a place of power and peril. Rathcroghan, also known as Cruachan, rises as a complex of earthworks, ringforts, and caves. For the Gaelic peoples of old Ireland, this was no ordinary hill. It was a threshold, a place where the veil between the human world and the otherworld grew thin, especially when the year turned towards darkness. Every Samhain, when the harvest was gathered and the boundary between the living and dead, known and unknown, softened like damp wool, something stirred in the depths of the cave. From that shadowed mouth emerged three figures, bound by blood and duty, the daughters of Airitech. Airitech himself remains a mystery wrapped in shadow, a creature of the otherworld, a being who had twice met violent ends at human hands, yet endured through the fierce loyalty of his progeny. He did not raid the surface himself in these later cycles. Instead, his three daughters upheld the ancient rhythm. They slipped into wolfskins, pelts that transformed flesh and spirit alike, and ascended into the moonlight as creatures of fang, fur, and yellow-eyed hunger. Not mindless beasts, but purposeful ones. They moved across the plains like living night, their howls a dissonant chord that carried both warning and need. They took what sustained their lineage, plump lambs from the folds, swift hares from the burrows, the occasional boar from the edges of the wood. It was harvest, yes, but also a claiming of what the threshold demanded. The humans of Connacht learned to fear these nights. They whispered of the wolf women who came with the turning of the year. In their fear, they crafted defenses. One Samhain, they lined the paths with carved turnip skulls, grimacing faces with gnarled teeth and hollow eyes, hoping to frighten the intruders back into the dark. The daughters paused, sniffed the air, and saw the truth. These were not bones of the dead, but clever deceits of root and knife. They pressed on, learning the lesson of human cunning. The following year, the people lit great bonfires, blazing tiny suns that roared and smoked, blinding the wolf's sight, choking the air. The daughters adapted, hunting by scent alone, their noses reading the wind like sacred text. Each cycle brought new trials, yet the daughters endured, for their father's survival and the balance of the threshold depended on it. On one faithful Samhain, the mist hung heavier than usual. The plains of the Connacht lay quiet under a cold moon. No bonfires crackled, no turnip skulls grinning from the paths. The daughters moved freely at first, 6 yellow eyes gleaming, paws silent on the dew-wet grass. Then came the sound, a melody so pure it seemed to rise from the earth itself. A man sat upon an old tree stump, his fingers dancing across the strings of a golden harp with silver strings. The music wove through the night like silver thread through black cloth, softening the sharp edges of instinct. The daughters approached, tails low, ears twitching. The harpist, Cruachan, a bard of skill and subtlety, spoke gently. He called them maidens and asked their names, promised to sing of them in his songs if they would share them. They answered as one. They were the daughters of Airitech, and they had no individual names to give. Their business was urgent, yet the music pulled at them, blunting the drive to hunt. Cruachan revealed his purpose with careful words. He had been sent by Cael-Mac-Ron, nephew of the great Finn Mac Cúil, and the leader among the Fianna, to offer a tribute in exchange for peace that night. Plump lambs, fat hares, juicy boars, all would be delivered if the daughters would simply wait and listen. The melody deepened. The daughters sat, then lay, their wolf forms lulled into strange peace. In their ears, the imagined sounds of approaching hoofs and carts seemed to promise the tribute. But when they stirred, the truth revealed itself. The sounds were cavalry and war machines. Coscoric had seized their wolfskins while they listened in human form, drawn out by the music's deeper emotional layers, a sadness and dimensionality only human ears could fully grasp. Vulnerable without their pelts, they found themselves encircled by warriors. Cael-Mac-Ron stepped forward, spear in hand. He named them devilish creatures and delivered judgment with one swift thrust. The spear found its mark, ending all three in a single act of precision and finality. Their bodies were buried, returning their essences to the cave and to the Father in the shadowed realms below. This is the core of the tale, as it has come down to us through the mists of time. Yet Irish folklore is rich with edge cases and variations, nuances that speak to the living, breathing nature of oral tradition among the Gaelic peoples. In some tellings, the daughters are framed more explicitly as fairy women or she, beings whose raids test or balance the human world rather than purely prey upon it. The weakness to music, rather than silver, echoes broader Celtic motifs, where bards and harpers hold power to bind, soothe, or reveal truths. Music as a bridge across thresholds. Broader Irish werewolf lore, often called Fela, or wolf walkers, presents a more complex picture. While this particular encounter shows conflict, many Fela appear as noble protectors, guardians of travelers, children, or the wild places themselves. They are intelligent, sometimes tragic figures who shift between forms, not always cursed monsters, but beings tied to the land's ancient spirit. Connections exist to the werewolves of Ossory, from Gerald of Wales' 12th century account, where men and women transformed or projected their spirits as wolves, sometimes leaving their human bodies in a death-like state. These stories may reflect real cultural practices, warriors donning wolfskins for raids or rituals, or deeper symbolic truths about the fluidity of identity and the beast within. The daughters' wolfskins themselves evoke Selkie-like motifs, transformation through a second skin, vulnerability when separated from it. Some variations suggest the three she-wolves appear in specific medieval compilations tied to the Finian cycle, the stories of Finn and his warriors, while others blend pre-Christian beliefs with later Christian interpretations that cast otherworld beings as devils. Modern creative works such as the animated film Wolfwalkers draws respectfully from this heritage, portraying wolf shifters with greater harmony to nature and community. These variations remind us that no single telling captures the full truth. Folklore lives and shifts like the mist over Cruachan. Respect for the indigenous history of these stories is essential. This is not exotic monster lore imposed from outside, but part of Ireland's own ancient Gaelic cultural heritage. The indigenous traditions of the Irish people, passed through generations via oral storytelling, later preserved in medieval manuscripts and still honored today in festivals, literature, and living cultural practice. These tales reflect deep relationships with the land, the seasons, and the unseen. They encode wisdom about liminality, scarcity, fear, and the consequences of failing to understand what lies beyond our thresholds. To retell them is to participate in the continuum of respect, honoring the sources, acknowledging the variations, and recognizing that the wild in these stories often carries profound lessons rather than simple menace. The entity of Airitech's daughters, The threshold kin, the wolf-skinned daughters of the cave, teaches us that boundaries between worlds are not meant to be violently sealed or exploited, but approached with reverence and listening. Their story reveals the peril of assuming dominance over the unknown. Humans driven by fear and the desire to protect their own use deception and force, stripping the daughters of their protective skins and ending a lineage that had adapted and endured. Yet the daughters, too, operated with a cycle of necessity that the surface world could not fully comprehend. The music that lured them was both bridge and trap, beauty revealing vulnerability, emotion exposing what armor conceals. The lesson is one of radical listening and humble coexistence. True power lies not in the spear that ends the other, but in the willingness to hear the deeper melody, the sadness, the dimensionality, the shared pulse of existence across forms. When we force the unknown into our shape or destroy what frightens us, we diminish the whole web. We bury parts of the wild wisdom that sustains balance, only to find the thresholds we thought closed now haunt us from within. For the future of our world, the implications are urgent and luminous. We stand today at countless new thresholds, shifting seasons that blur ancient rhythms, digital realms and artificial intelligences that challenge what human even means, genetic frontiers that echo shape-shifting and explorations, terrestrial or cosmic, that bring us face to face with the other. If we approach these spears of conquest, fear-driven defenses, or the assumption that our form is the only valid one, we risk repeating the tragedy at Cruachan on a planetary scale. We may strip away protective skins of biodiversity, cultural diversity, or ecological balance only to discover that we have buried something essential to our own survival. But if we heed the old wisdom, if we bring harps of curiosity, respect, and genuine dialogue to the threshold, we open the possibility of something greater, a dance across worlds rather than a war upon them. The daughters of Airitech, in their dark mystery, whisper this enduring truth. The unknown is not an enemy to be slain, but a relation to be understood. In honoring the liminal and listening before we strike, we preserve not only the other, but the fullness of ourselves. The future does not belong to those who close the cave. It belongs to those who learn to walk between worlds with open eyes, open ears, and an open heart. That's it for today's story. Remember that some thresholds are meant to be crossed together. So hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Give me a follow on social media. Until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows.